going on, guys? Armand here. Welcome back to the Cracked Lens podcast. I'm here with Michael and our guest, Matt Jacob. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, wherever you
Yeah,
might be at the moment. It's good to be
yeah,
here.
we're in Portland, Oregon.
Armand's place today.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
in Portland, Oregon at my place today. Where are you at?
I'm in Bali. I'm in my studio in Bali. Yeah, it's what is it? 11 a.m. now, so kind of half the day's already gone, but we're cracking on. It's beautiful blue sky outside, and can't complain.
Jealous. I
I
love.
know. We're ending the day over here in Portland, obviously.
Yeah,
It's like dark and nighttime outside, but we also have a beautiful day today, get into that early spring weather, which is exciting for us
nice. Yeah,
photographers.
I think we've seen the worst of we've seen the worst of the winter now. Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, it's about 7 at night here. So,
So, Matt, just before we really get into this, tell us a little bit about you, just like unfiltered story, like where did things start for you in photography and what does photography mean to you?
Photography is everything to me in a therapeutic kind of way. If I was to rewind, like to answer the first part of your question, I didn't really get into photography until I was about 30. I'm 42 now, and the first kind of half of my life was very much quite a regimented one. I was really good at things like maths and physics, and I wanted to be a pilot, so I went and became a pilot, and it was very like non-creative background, but there was
Yeah.
always something missing. I never really felt like I belonged. I felt like I was kind of going in the path that other people wanted me to go in. Not that I didn't want to be a pilot. I absolutely was desperate to be a pilot, but I was kind of steered down that way of living. It was in the UK at the time,
Okay.
and it was just what people did. They got education. They either went to further education or they went to apprenticeship, and then everyone just got jobs. It was just go do your 9 to 5 job and save, work hard, save, retire, die. That was the that was
The
the
dream.
journey of life. I just didn't want to do that, and so I've always felt there was something else. And it was the travel that really opened my eyes to cameras and photography. I was very, very fortunate to have a wonderful upbringing. And as I said, I became a pilot, which allowed me to travel the world for free, essentially. Well, get paid to travel. It was like dream job. But I was never really fulfilled in that job. And it wasn't until kind of I started traveling and kind of unearthing different cultures and different locations, different ways of life, and different people, right? Like there's no better education than meeting someone different than you. And
Hmm.
I wanted to somehow document it. And so my gadgetry brain, a guy who loves buttons and tech and gadgets and toys, was like, well, the best thing that I'll have fun with is a camera. And then I started, using it. I was obviously really bad. I was like, oh, this is a lot harder than I realized. I just thought you just buy a good camera and take your photos, right? Of course,
Hmm.
that's about as far from the truth as you can get. So yeah, it was really the travel thing that sparked my curiosity with cameras. It wasn't really later on until I started to understand photography, and of course they're vastly different, those two things. And yeah, I was hooked. There was something about it that allowed me to just be whoever I wanted to be, but also connect with the outer world. I wasn't an introvert, but I wasn't an extrovert, and it was kind of somewhere in the middle, and really didn't have very good people skills. And so the camera allowed me to. It didn't allow me, but it taught me how to connect with people better. So it was really
Wonderful.
a good tool with that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't looked back since.
Yeah. So, all right. So when you were a pilot and becoming a photographer, like those two things overlapped, right? So you were able to take your camera and travel wherever. How, like, tell us a little bit about, I guess, the beginning of that journey. Maybe some cool places or some cool experiences you had once the camera was in your hand.
Yeah, I mean Indonesia, where I am now, is a great example of that. We I was based in Hong Kong a lot for my pilot job, and I mean still am arguably. I still work as a pilot, and we depending on what the kind of schedule was like, we'd come down to Indonesia quite a lot. go to Australia, go to Africa a lot. I'd be sat in Kenya or something for a week and go on safari, right? And then it's like, well,
Yeah.
enjoy the safari, but the next level is taking photos of the animals and my experiences and the landscapes. And so those were some of the most memorable experiences I've ever had, but very frustrating that I didn't have a clue what I was doing with a camera. So I would just snap away thinking, oh, these are great. And now I look back on it, almost 10 years later, I guess, thinking, oh, if I could go back to those places now, I would do such a better job. So yeah, Indonesia was a big inspiration for me with the people here, the diversity of the culture, the landscapes, the people, the faces, really kind of excited me with portraiture. As I said, Africa. I mean, I've been to so many weird and wonderful places. Very lucky to have said that. South America. I mean, there's so many. It just got me inspired and interested with different cultures, because being from, essentially middle class, white collar Westerner from the UK, I had to go and put myself in those cultures. I was never going to kind of experience that on my back doorstep. So I was really interested in, finding out who I am and who I compare to other people around the world. So there was some wonderful African locations. It's still some of my favorite destinations to this day, and of course Indonesia. And I got brought back here with that curiosity and that excitement with this place, Bali specifically, but Indonesia as a whole.
Love that.
I was gonna say, with the traveling, like traveling somewhere, and I've always kind of had a camera in my hands when I've gone places. It's been a really big hobby of mine since I was younger, and when I started, like after school, I lived in my truck for a little bit, and I remember my camera was a really good way to meet people at the time. And so, like, going to new places, being a pilot before versus having a camera afterwards, like, does the camera serve as a really good key to like starting conversation and meeting people and learning more about the culture? I haven't been able to travel to like other countries with my camera. Armand's been other places doing landscape photography and things like that, but not me. I've been very locked to the States. I've got kids here, so it's like I'm very curious like how that works when you go somewhere that's completely different than where you're from and you've got that camera in your hand. Like what kind of doors that opens.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I would just go on what you said about you not having the opportunity to travel. I would really embrace that. I think you're on your own journey, of course, and your work is excellent, as is yours, Armand. But I kind of wish I wasn't so distracted with so many I'm obviously completely privileged to have those opportunities to be able to travel, but I never, not until really now in the last few years, I've focused more on like one story to tell or one project. I was always like, oh, I want to go there and take those shots. I want to go there and take those shots. So I definitely embrace that. Like if you're a home guy, I do those really intimate projects wherever you live life. Essentially, that's really where the good work is and the deep work comes from, right? So it 100% definitely it opens conversations. I wouldn't say it opens doors. It depends where you go. Many countries now are so used to the social media world and are so used to people going purely to get their Instagram shot. I like to think we're coming over the other side of that now, because people learn and people want to change things. But if you walk up, I never walk into a place with a camera in hand. I always leave the camera as the last thing I want to be thinking about. For a couple of reasons, is that because I shoot portraits, I want to get to know the people I'm photographing. I think that's like the essence of good portrait work.
Yeah.
And they'll just get scared. They generally get, oh God, another guy with a camera. Many people have seen it all before. Don't get me wrong, there are a few untouched places that which I try my best to find, because I want to the most raw, authentic experience I can find.
Yeah.
And often that's almost goes the other way, because they've never seen a camera before, they've never had the photograph taken, and they're completely shell-shocked, right? So it doesn't really open that door to a conversation, because you have to kind of start from scratch. Yeah. So, look, I'm very project-based, so I'll do a big project with a lot of research, pre-production, and then kind of plan it all out, usually a recce, and then go back another time. so I know what I'm getting myself into. But the act of photographing, I guess, the the craft of it, the whole thing, not just picking up a camera, allows me to spark conversations, of course. But I would compare that to, or contrast that with maybe another genre like street or just more reportage stuff. Then that probably brings in more of that tool of conversation, because you're literally got a much smaller camera around your neck and you're just kind of much more of an observational person with that camera, and so it provides something that you guys can talk about immediately to a stranger. My kind of way of doing that is a little bit different. So yeah, it's a bit of both, I guess.
I think I feel like where you're coming from with that. Yeah, and like in say like if we're here in Portland, Oregon, we're walking around the street. Like if you walk up to someone and you want their attention, they're probably like, I don't want to talk. But if you're like, hi, I'm a street photographer, they're very much like, oh, okay, well now I'm interested. Let's take a picture. But I see like you were talking about if you have your camera, it creates a different environment. And that's so true. Like even in my work with weddings and stuff like that, I see that. Like I'd rather be shooting 200 millimeters off in the bushes, getting like authentic moments of people at tables or things like that, rather than getting up in someone's face, because it completely changes the dynamic of what you're doing. So if you want to capture the culture, you want to make it, you got to like get in there and come. I'm just loving the notes that you're giving for that, because I definitely want to travel when my boys are a little bit older and kind of pick up where I left off and go and see other countries. So you're giving me great notes, man, because I definitely want to do portraits and go travel.
Yeah, it depends. It depends. I mean, you could even do subgenres, right? If portraits are, there's so many different ways of doing a portrait. So it really depends on also how you feel, what your comfortable process is, and that you only find that by trying things, right? What's going to make me get out of bed and be excited about going to do photography? Okay, that's my process that I'm comfortable in, and how can I kind of envelop everything else around that? So I think it's important to really know yourself and know what you want to do first, and then it's a matter of, okay, how best to go and get in people's faces, or how best to not get in people's faces so I can capture more candid moments, whatever it might be. It's the same with the landscapes, right? It's like, how can I be somewhere that no one else can find me? So I can have all the time in the world. I can like be there for days if I need to be, just to get the right light. And I don't want to, a drone flying and then people reporting me. And, there's people everywhere these days, right? So it's like, what is the process that you can really kind of sink into, that you're happy with, content, at peace with? And then you can kind of figure out the rest of it around that, I think.
Yeah, that's so hard, especially, I think probably within the last like 7 years since Instagram has really blown up, it's so hard to find any location that nobody's been to.
Yep.
You're in Bali. I went there in 2019, amazing place. I love it. But it's very, I don't know, Instagram versus reality now.
Oh my goodness, Bali's the worst for it. I think it is changing. Like we saw pre-COVID, it was just insane. It was the influencer location. People would come, and they still do, but less so because the government are kind of cracking down on it.
That's
but people come, and they do this everywhere. But Bali was a hotspot for it. Influencers would literally fly in, get in a van, and just go to the Instagram shot locations and then fly out. That's it. Just to get there. No respect for the culture, no giving back, no integration, no like meeting any of the local people to kind of just understand a little bit about what they do and why they do it, and the history of the island, history of the country, etc. None of that. And that's okay, like if people are doing that as a job, but it just kind of takes something away. Like you're always taking. Yeah. So I was just up at a beautiful lake. It's about an hour and a half drive. I got up at 4 a.m. this morning, just like, I'm going to make sunrise this morning. And if I don't get a shot, I don't get a shot. It's just a nice ride out. But I still got to a lake, a beautiful lake, with a local lady who was doing her morning prayers. And there was no one else around. I was like, look, even if I don't get a shot, I'm kind of enjoying the challenge of finding new places that no one goes to, or if they go to, they only go in the day because no one can be bothered to get up at 4 a.m. So, it's kind of, I was talking about this with someone yesterday, the challenges that social media provides, because it's easy to just kind of knock social media down, especially as photographers, right? Instagram came along. It's like, photographers, we love Instagram. It's brilliant. And then they turned to Reels, like, we hate Instagram. It's the worst. And it's just a matter of adaptability and seeing, now post a carousel. Think about doing a carousel that might tell a bit of a narrative rather than just posting one image. I think that's a good skill to try and learn to do. So little things like that social media has, on the face of it, really kind of damaged photography. But I think if us photographers can really adapt in those environments, and whether it's like finding locations that people don't go to, there are definitely locations that people don't go to. Like, it's a fact. It's just a matter of working harder to find out where they are, or even if it is a location, find out a specific tiny little location in the bushes somewhere that no one knows about, right? So we can see it both ways, but
Not just the viewpoint, like on the side of the freeway kind of thing. So, being someone that hasn't got to do too much traveling, like I don't think about that too much. Basically, there's like the Instagram locations that you go to, right? And like, and I was talking about that with my friend the other day. That like, there's landscape photographers that actually go out and they'll hustle and they'll find the new spots, and then there's landscape photographers that find the viewpoint. And as someone who doesn't go to those places, like, how are you supposed to know the difference, right? So it is really interesting to hear that take mentality of people just going out to like Bali and just going in a van and going to those places. And that's like, as someone who hasn't explored many other places, I'm like just thinking about that. I'm like, man, now I really want to go and find the places that are unseen. Because even here, when I go shoot, like, you could go to like, we have waterfalls like Multnomah or whatever, like the popular ones, but I like to go on like the state website and look for the tall ones. But like, this last time I went out on a landscape journey for myself, there's this place called Idiot Creek Falls, which sounds funny, but it's a 200 something foot waterfall. It's surveyed on the site, but there's like no hiking trails, no nothing to get to it. It's just out in the middle of the forest. And I never know when I'm looking, at people's landscape shots from other places, like if it's a popular place or if it's not a popular place. Of course, you could dig into it, but I'm just like sitting here thinking, man, like, what am I looking at when I'm online? Just the same old places everyone else is going to and playing a little tour, like
I think
sprinter
we can
van.
overthink it as well, though. Like, I mean, I only know, I mean, the places I've been to around the world, they all have an element of Instagram hotspots, right? We're just in that world these days. You'd have to go to the jungle within the jungle within the jungle in Papua New Guinea or somewhere that's dangerous and no one's ever charted before for a really good reason to kind of find a place that's completely untouched, which some people do, but the majority don't. So I think like we have to accept the fact that it's going to be very, very difficult for any of us as individual photographers to find a place that no one else has been to before. So it's just the way of the world at the moment. However, I think that's okay. I think as photographers, we've got to lean into the fact that we all have our own style, our own voice, and our own self-expression. We might be stood next to each other. I might be stood next to you guys looking at the same thing, but we'll shoot differently, right? So, and that's cool. That's the beauty of it. So I think we just got to embrace that and not put too much pressure on ourselves. Yeah, if we can find unique locations, brilliant. But a lot of people don't have the time, the money, the access, me included. Like, I don't want to spend weeks trying to find somewhere that just no one's been before just for the sake of it. Unless it's got something to really tell me and something to really like connect with me. So look, it's same with the people. If I go to a tribe that many people have photographed before, so what? I'll do it better or I'll do it differently. I'll get to know them better. I'll have my own unique take on it. And I think that's something that photographers often kind of miss or don't necessarily think about enough. It's okay that we might shoot the same thing on the same place or the same people or the same street, whatever it might be. That's okay. Like we live in a highly saturated market. We live in a highly digitized world. Like it's just, let's be real about this,
Yeah, I feel like it's almost getting worse too.
Well, of course, yeah.
For sure.
Like, the more things are broadcasted and out there, the more people want to go there, and the more saturated it becomes, and the more the next influencer.
You got Google Pins, right? Like some photographers are happy to release all of their. Bali's another great example, just because I know it. It's on my back doorstep. Every photographer I know here has got their Google Pins around the whole island of good locations to shoot. me included. Now, would you give those pins away to a tourist that comes in and wants to go and get good photos? Half of me is like, well, no, screw you. You can't just come in. Like, I put a lot of work and time and sunrises
Yeah.
and early mornings and failed missions into this. You can have it, but I'll sell it to you. But is that really helping the environment, like the photography environment and the photography community? Is it really helping, or are we just kind of like exacerbating what we're talking about? Just people using, like, I just need a quick fix, short form content. I need a quick image. I need a banger. Always need a banger, but I'm not really going to put much effort into it because I've got the best camera on the market that I can just point and shoot and don't really have to think about. And someone's given me a Google Map pin, and I can get 10 bangers in a day if I have the right pin. So it's like, you kind of have to use a discretion, really. I know some photographers who are completely against giving away any of their hard-earned information, which I don't know. I don't really like the idea of gatekeeping that type of stuff, but I also don't like the idea of someone putting blood, sweat, and tears into doing years of research and trial and errors, and then just kind of giving away that information without someone kind of paying for it, I guess. Hence the launch of, paid courses or mentorships and workshops and things like that, which I'm all for, because we want to give back and we want to like promote people doing things well and learning the way that we've learned. But I don't know if I'm for this kind of Instagram quick fix photography philosophy.
My own perspective, especially with landscapes and locations and things like that, is like the work behind it. Getting the shot's such a small part too, and it takes a lot of time and effort and know-how to get that shot. But the place itself, it's like the equivalent of if you're taking a picture in the studio and someone else has set up all the light for you. If someone just delivers the location, I don't feel like it's really that's kind of why I backed out of. I used to do a lot of landscape photography when I began, and we're talking about social media. So when I started building an Instagram, most of my followers came from, I had landscape photography, and then I switched to portraits with my social media. But I kind of stopped because I was kind of locked in a place because my children were young, and I didn't have time to go on adventures. But like that was the big thing for me. I was like, if I can't go find the spots myself, I don't really just want to look it up.
Yeah.
And or ask someone else. And now we joke about it. My girlfriend and I, Rose, we say we should make trading cards, like locations. Like, I don't want to give you a spot, but I'll trade you a spot because I put this work in.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because we there's so many. One of the biggest issues I had when I was learning was people were very closed off with the information they wanted to share, and I think some of it was location specific. I was living in Hong Kong at the time. And everyone, like the photography community, was completely guarded. It's like, no, I can't. I'm not going to share anything with you. I'm not going to help you. And it's like, well, is this really the community I want to be in? So yeah, I love that idea. Like we're all the same. We're all in this together. Like, come on, let's just go and do it together, rather than just like give something away to you and that you abuse. Let's go and like do it together. Like you said, trade. You give me this, I'll give you that, and let's work together. Let's collaborate. Right? That's kind of a healthy way of growing the photography world and photography community as a whole. I do like that idea. It's cool.
And that's kind of what we do. If there's someone like that we work with and they're in the community, but we know that it's not take kind of person, and it's someone who really is genuinely interested in learning and like putting their best effort forward and also giving back and sharing. Like I have no gatekeeping in my books. And that's at least it's me and a lot of the people I think that we meet here in Portland. We're lucky. There's a lot of really good community players. And and that actually takes me. I wanted to ask you a little bit about like, tell me, what's the way to ask this? I guess like, what does like photography community mean to you?
Well, that's a good question.
Maybe I'll start with this. What's your community like? Like, what's your circle like for your photography community there? What's your network of photographers look like where you are or abroad?
I think like-minded people with essentially one thing in common, and that's just creating something that they're proud of, right? And I think if we all are able to kind of share that goal or that drive, I should say, not the goal, just constant drive to create images and create stories and just be better and create upon creation and create upon creation, constant iteration of that. I think that's like a deep rooted philosophy that I think is that you can find really true meaning and connection with. That being said, the community here, we all have our differences. We all shoot differently. We all learn differently. We've all had, just like every human on this planet, we've all had completely different paths to where we've got to today. So, the community that I like to have is people that understand that and respect that, and are able to share because of it. So, that very fortunate here in Bali, the photography community is just epic. People love being photographers here, not necessarily here, but maybe they're photographers, they work abroad, but they live here. And it's really tight in that respect, but also we all understand that everyone's on their own path. But when we come together, it's just a sharing of knowledge, but not in a teaching way. So it's always just conversations, anecdotes, stories, connections, like having a network. If you're a full-time photographer and you're trying to pay the bills, right, you need to be good at networking. You need to be, and that's not just being an extrovert and shouting the loudest. It's just being kind, compassionate, understanding, empathetic to what people's experiences have been, where they're at in their journey, whether they're further along than you or just starting. You never know who you might meet and who might be able to help you as well along the way. So I think I don't know if that really answers your question. It's a very difficult question to answer.
No, I feel
it's
like
more
I
like
found,
a feeling. It's more like a feeling than it is necessarily a description. Yeah.
the answer that I feel like I derived was like it's diversity is essential in your community and what you have. And I have no idea what the scene is like in Bali. Obviously, I haven't been there, but from what I hear, it sounds like maybe that there's diversity, but it's celebrated in the fact that you guys bring these different stories together, and like that just adds to everyone's collective story. And I see the same here. Everyone that we get to meet and work with, there's people from all different walks of life. And I grew up in a small town where it was kind of echo chambery, and a lot of people were the same, had the same opinions and feelings about just about everything you could think of. And then here in Portland, I've met people of all different kinds, and it's really opened my mind and made me understand what I believe in and like how I feel about everything. And so that diversity is really important to me. And so I think I heard kind of the same thing coming from you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that.
Knowing you got, I mean, the commonality that I like to have in that community is basically what you're saying. But knowing that you could pick up the phone to someone and say, "Hey, look, do you want to go and shoot tomorrow morning sunrise?" And you know that they'll either say yes, or they'll just be like, "Yeah, not tomorrow, but the next day for sure I'll be there." Nice. Even though you may not have seen each other for months, and that they've been doing their work and you've been doing your work, and you just have this one love that you share together, and that's just going out and taking photos, right? Because we all get so just quite rightly, we have to get caught up with admin and business, networking, and social media and sales and marketing and just pitching, and just all of this shit that comes with trying to do photography. All we want to do is just go and take photos. That's all, speak to any photographer on the planet. It's like, all I want to do is go and take photos. I don't want to do any of that, but we have to. Yeah, so when we can all come together and just be like, let's just go and take photos. Let's forget about everything else. Let's just go and shoot. And that's what I love about the community.
All this distance between us, and you're just speaking exactly how I feel every single day. We're going to take pictures today.
We're all the same.
My favorite thing is when you're out shooting landscapes in the middle of nowhere and there's no cell reception, so you don't have to like think about all these things.
Everything else is gone.
Yeah, I love it.
That's all you need. Yeah, I feel like the travel and landscape photography community, it's interesting, right? Because like, just like you, I've been like all over the world, and when I meet people who are like also photographers and we're out shooting, we just have this thing in common, right? And how do I want to describe this? It's like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, whatever. Like we have this amazing thing in common, and it's such an awesome thing to like, celebrate and go out and shoot. And, maybe if I'm in Bali one day, we'll go out and shoot.
Celebrate is a good word.
Yeah.
You know, we have to remember that, right? We get to celebrate being able to do this, which is such a dream.
It is.
It's literally
So
the
yeah,
dream
It
job.
is. It is.
yeah,
It's like even if it's just so as a full timer too, and a lot of full time photographer can mean a ton of different things. Obviously, we all know that. But just being able to do it and to, like you said, celebrate that passion all the time. If even if it's just 2% of the time you're actually using that camera, it
yep,
is so unbelievably worth it for the
yep,
experiences that you gather, the things that you do. I cannot imagine. Like I we work a lot, and sometimes I get like really frustrated because it feels like it's always that classic like one step forward, two steps back, especially when you have a studio. But then every time I have a moment or I'm like out just immersed in the real world, I guess I'll call it, and I remember like holy shit, like I get to do what I love all the time for work, and I'm just like
mm,
so humbled, and I just feel so lucky that I get to do that. It's the craziest, coolest thing in the whole world, and it's not even
that's
real to
awesome.
me.
Yeah,
And
good for you.
so I think that all photographers, especially if they go full time and start keeping up, you got to remember that it is really lucky that we get to do that. And
Difficult to remember. Difficult to remember when you're stuck in the weeds, but it's important to. That's why having breaks is important. Still having roots in just. My wife is great because I don't know. Could could be out. You know, we could be on a big project and like, oh yeah, I've got the shot or something like that. She doesn't care. She's like, what are you having for breakfast? You know, it's just keeping grounded in that respect. Always
mhm.
brings you back to planet Earth. Go, oh yeah, look, I'm super grateful for being able to just do this, right? Being able to pick up a camera, to be able to afford a camera, and go and just shoot. I mean, photography can be extremely cheap. We don't have to think about it like this. Many people come to me and go, "Oh, I don't have the budget to be a photographer." So what are you talking about? Like, of
Oh,
course you do. You need $100, right? If that. Um, so yeah, I totally agree with you guys. How did you How did you guys get started in photography? What was your journey?
Oh man, my story isn't super cool, but so I actually started as a musician, and I was recording guitar covers on YouTube. This was way back in 2010, 2011.
My God, I'm so
Um,
gonna look those videos up.
I actually had to delete the channel because I had
Oh, did
like
you?
clients, I had clients finding me on
you shouldn't
YouTube.
have deleted it. It's cool. That's the
I
coolest
know.
thing. You're like, yeah, this is me.
I have the videos still, but I don't have the channel. But I was shooting with like this really like not so great like Sony Handycam, right? And eventually I was like, all right, I want to start shooting better videos, and I went out and got Canon 7D. That was like the thing at the time. That was the cool camera. And I started buying more lenses with it, and then I started traveling, and I just started, taking photos. And like I went to film school too, so I have like a little bit
Cool.
of that like film background too. Yeah, and
How is
uh,
this not a cool entry into photography?
It's pretty
Super
sick.
cool.
yeah, so one passion kind of like led me into the other, and
Yeah.
I just kind of accidentally picked up a camera and just started traveling, and one thing led to another. It just became a full time career.
Never ended.
Yeah,
Nice, man.
still
That's
still
awesome.
doing it.
Oh, yeah, man.
Still grinding.
Yep. What
Yeah.
about you?
For me, oh man. So I was living on the road. I mean, so it was a hobby first, I guess, in like high school and stuff. And I would do like post-apocalyptic photo shoots or like little landscape things out in the desert where I lived. And then I ended up living on the road with my ex, and then yeah, I was using it as a way to document my travels and landscapes, stuff like that, like street portraiture. Did some stuff in like San Francisco, and then life happens. I had a baby on the way. I was like barely like around 18,
Wow.
and so I started doing portraits on the side because I was doing it for fun, and then I did a couple portraits to like make a couple bucks, and that became like a side hustle as it does for a lot of photographers when they're beginning, and that side hustle grew, and I got stable and I got a place and I started raising my son, and then I um, portraiture ended up being like, will you do my wedding? And I was like, I don't want that responsibility. Will you do my wedding? I don't want that responsibility. I think I turned down four before I met a couple where I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll do it. And then weddings is really what kept it going as a career because I made enough to sustain some sort of living, and not for many years. I really struggled. Um, there were a lot of times I probably should have stopped and maybe gotten like a more like official job, but I knew like if I just keep pushing, if I keep pushing, then I can get there. And I don't feel like anyone, family or past partner or any of that stuff had faith in it, but I knew like if I kept pushing that I could make a career out of it. And so I'm stubborn and I kept going, and now I've done like over 300 weddings and countless other portrait sessions. And
Wow.
when I met my girlfriend now, Rose, a couple of years ago, um, she was a model, so it was kind of taboo at first. We were friends at first, but we got to know each other, and then we liked each other, and one thing leads to another. And but she is like me in many ways, and I think the meshing of our two worlds and like bringing our communities of creatives together and was super beneficial. And we started networking, and I learned from my experience of being like a lonely freelancer that was suffering that community was really important to me because I didn't know that. And then
Hmm.
once I started meeting more people through her and being more open-minded about like hanging out with other creatives and not gatekeeping and helping each other, I just started to like grow in every way imaginable. And I was hooked on wanting to like have more community and bring people together. And I used to be that way outside of photography, so yeah, I don't even know. Now we have like basically Portland's main like rentable photo studio and a really, really humbling, incredible group of creatives around us. It's how we met people like Armand. Um, Tons of awesome other creatives, and I'm so unbelievably lucky to be able to tell all those people that didn't have any faith in me, like I made it regardless. So
Yeah. Fuck you guys.
yeah, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically.
basically.
I mean, it is interesting. I mean, I joke, but a lot of the drive comes. I don't know about you guys. Certainly, me in business comes from people who doubted me in the
No,
beginning,
you're
or
right. You're
still
spot
doubt me
on.
You're
now.
100%. That's
That's the source of the drive, right?
I'm
Yeah.
like, you tell me I can't do it. I'm just gonna do it then.
Yeah, I'm
Whatever.
just gonna do it. Yeah, I'm as stubborn as you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to be. I think you absolutely, and that's one thing people will ask who are just picking up a camera, like, what's some really important things about being a full-time photographer is, and I'm like, you just can't give a shit about what people think. Like, especially if you are in any kind of situation where, like, say you're at a concert or a wedding, you can't think about anyone around you. You like fucking doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You gotta be a little fearless, and then you have to be really stubborn. And shit's gonna look grim at times. It still does all the time. You just gotta
I
keep
think
going.
I'll add one caveat to that, and that's just as long as you 100% believe in what you're doing. If you believe in what you want to do and what you're doing, you got to be as stubborn as hell, like
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
resilient, completely driven, completely like like the horse blinkers. You just don't fucking look at anything else. You are just down
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
path.
exactly.
Get your
But if
horse
you don't
blinders
like
on.
really, if you have a few doubts in what you want to do, then it'll all go wrong, right? So
Yeah.
It's so
I think
fucking
So
accurate.
true. Yeah, I remember I was working in film for a couple years at that point, and I really wanted to pursue the travel photography thing. And I started telling my friends, I was like I'm not super into film or whatever. I think I'm gonna go travel the world, and like they didn't understand it at the time. They didn't get it, and it wasn't until like maybe like a year later I was catching up with all the same people, and they're like, dude, like these photos are insane. Like, where have you been? All this stuff. And like, they didn't believe in me until I actually went and did it.
And
yeah,
that's why.
well, you just prove to
Yeah.
them, yeah,
Yeah. Fuck you guys.
yeah.
So, where where do you want to go on your photography pathway from here? Like, what's next for you? Like, what are some? You got any cool places you want to go next? Are you gonna stick in Bali for a while? Like, what you got going on?
Any photo goals?
Yeah, well, I've got a business here that's not, well, photography is a small part of it, but we own a cafe and a jewelry company here, and that's kind of taken up. It's only been a year open, and me and my business partner, obviously like drawn our attention a lot more to that. Still doing obviously photography. I have the podcast, which happens right here in the studio, which I absolutely love doing, and that's going in the right direction, albeit just slowly as podcasts do. But with learning so many lessons through that, and I want that to be a much bigger part of my life. I mean, it already takes, as you guys know, it already takes up a lot of time, energy, resources to make sure I produce good podcasts every week with good guests, good conversations, well produced, well edited. I want that kind of premium product. So there's that. And photography wise, I'm really working hard, kind of taking a step back from. Last year I started to take a step back from just traveling and doing not even big projects, but just like, I'm going to go to this place because I'm interested in these people and this culture. I'm going to see what it's like. I'm going to shoot, and then I'm going to come home. Now it's much more of a much bigger story arcs that I'm interested in. So there's a couple of stories I'm working on in Indonesia that I want to kind of tell photographically. So I'm actually going on a recce next week to an island called Sumba in Indonesia to see just kind of, it's an island I haven't been to here, but it has a rich kind of tribal history, and now tourism is starting to kind of enter the market there. So I'm interested in comparing, contrasting the kind of the Bali tourist impact on the local population here with land grabs and corruption and just general kind of impacts on the local population over the last couple of decades. There's been crazy growth in tourism here. And so I want to kind of see where this other island called Sumba is at in that kind of journey, because it looks like it's going to be having a similar kind of trajectory over the next decade or two. And I kind of want to explore that. So kind of looking at photography projects in a much higher level, and kind of really seeing how deep I can get in these stories without having that pressure of like, I've got to post, I need a new portfolio, I need new content, I need to kind of, I'm kind of done with that a little bit. Obviously I want to keep shooting and I want to keep practicing. I always want to get better. And so I was always shoot every week. I don't shoot every day at all. I wish I did. But other priorities, as you guys know, take precedent. So yeah, that's kind of like where I want to go with my actual photographs over the next 1 to 2 years. So we'll see, and opportunities always come up. Little ideas come up for like mini project. Couple of days shoot here, a couple of days shoot there, maybe. And Bali itself it's got such a rich culture and rich landscape here, and both geographically but also metaphorically. There's so much to explore that I don't still yet know. So yeah, we'll see. I don't have any like firm plans yet, apart from growing the podcast and kind of turning my attention to the deeper long form stories photographically.
Nice.
Yeah, that's super cool. Especially, being able to see a place, knowing that, in the future tourism is coming there, and being able to see it before all that stuff hits.
It's gonna be
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to shape up, but I guess that's why I'm going. I've got a connection there. I'm going to meet this lady. She runs a foundation there, and just kind of see. It may not work. It may not be the right place, but I have a good feeling about it, and it might be a good opportunity over the next 6 to 12 months to kind of revisit there a few times and really just get to know the place, get to know the people, and see if there's something I can tell. I definitely feel photographically I'm going into now that chapter of being more of a storyteller than being more of a kind of a visual spokesperson. So I just enjoy that process. Really love like what you guys talked about earlier, and the photograph is like 1%, the final 1%. It's like pressing that shutter button, or pressing export in your Lightroom catalog. It's like the final 1% of the journey that I enjoy. I love it, but actually the process is so much more fulfilling, so much more like, if you get that process right, you don't really need to worry about the photograph, because it will be, you've done the hard work, and it will be good. If you've done all the trial and errors, you've failed, and then you've changed, and then you've done your research, and you've whether you've got to that location for the 20th time and you finally found the right place with the right light and the right angle, right composition, or if it's spending, multiple weeks with the same individual just to try and get to know them and tell their story, and it may not work. You may have to just change a tune and think about something completely different. But once you finally get to that point where you can press that shutter button, you're happy with what you've put together, like that's the fulfilling part, right? The photograph is the last tiny little piece. So
the journey is far more important than the end product, man.
Yeah. So cool.
Dude, I mean, I'm like trying to process your life, man. It seems cool what you've got going on right now, and I really hope that you take every pathway that like comes in front of you and just keep going. And I think that like the turn you made from that regimented life going into like this chaotic life of photography, because it is extremely chaotic. It's not regimented. I think that was a bold move, and I think it's really cool, and I think the stories you tell are really valuable and cool, and I hope you keep finding them. I wish you the best of luck too with your next adventure and what you're going to find. And I mean, you never know unless you try, right? And I think you got a good idea. Just make that pathway happen, man. It's really cool.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's very kind. You guys is just as much of an inspiration, so keep it going, and well done with everything you've put together so far, and I'll be watching from the other side of the world.
Dude, appreciate that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same.
It's crazy. Like this is our first time talking to someone far away like you are. I mean, even using this app, like we were talking before this podcast, and like connecting like this. We've never met you in person, and I really hope to one day. And
yeah, we will.
It's just crazy though that the similarities that we feel being so far apart, and just like that photographer lifestyle, and it's cool because I feel like you get it, but the place you are, the things that you're doing are completely not the same, and I'm just like, man.
But that's the beauty of photography.
What we're doing.
Yeah, but that's people. You never know. Like you never know how people feel about one another too, and like.
Don't get me wrong. Like every day, I wake up with self-doubt. Right? Everyone wakes up with just that fear of, can I really do this? Am I imposter syndrome all the time?
I was literally gonna say it, but I didn't know what to say. I was like, because even still, like I feel like we get to do really cool stuff, but then I'm like, man, I'm not that cool. Like I'm just doing normal. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Making stuff up all the time, and then people go, "Oh yeah, that's really cool." Like, yeah, I know. Just as if I thought about it for so long, just make stuff up. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Half the time, I don't know what I'm doing. But that's cool. Everyone's like that, right? It's just that we're able to hopefully have the courage to just go and try something and not be so worried that shit's going to happen, things are going to fail, you're going to try something, it doesn't work. That's okay, but
fuck up. Just like you were saying,
definitely the important thing is you are aware of when you fuck up and you learn from it. That's the difference between good and great, is that you are able to just recognize, I tried, I gave that everything, but it was a mistake. I'm not going to do that again, and if I try that again, I'm going to do it differently. That's literally how people succeed in life. So like I'm all for that.
See, that's the fun of a creative career, is like the super highs and the super lows, and when
we call it fun.
Yeah, fun. it's not fun when you're at the low point. When you're at the high point, it's amazing.
If you've got the courage and the willingness to learn, though, it's just worth it. And I think to anyone who thinks that the lifestyle is a cool one, it's definitely a challenging one. It really, really, really definitely is a challenging thing to do all the time. And there's not many people to help you, but for anyone who is trying, just like push, try, fuck up, learn from it. Don't get stuck in your ways. Learn from it. Talk to other people, and don't gatekeep, man. And I think that you've got a lot of the ideas right in what you're doing and the community that you have around you, and the way that you're building yourself up, man. And respect.
Thanks. I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Armand?
Yeah, all right. Well, cool. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate having you on the podcast. Any final words? Anything you want to leave us with?
No, I think I've talked way too much. So I will leave the rest of the interpretation curiosity to your viewers. But Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully, if I'm in Portland one day, I don't think I've ever been to Portland. I've been a lot of places in the US, but yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think I've been to Portland. So yeah, if I ever end up going there, I'll definitely shoot you guys a message.
We would love to show you around. And
Yeah,
honestly, I've
definitely.
gathered a lot from listening to you talk, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us, truly.
Yeah, super appreciate
And
it.
so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, cool,
And
great fun.
excited to
Yeah,
watch this again and listen again. And yeah, man, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
if there's any businesses or things you want to plug, now's the time.
Oh well, yeah. There's a lot going on. I mean, with my photography, obviously, I'd love people to tune into my podcast, and in a non-competitive way, we're all in this together. And
Absolutely.
if I can help someone else's podcast, then I'm all for it. But yeah, if people want to tune into my podcast, it's the Mood Podcast. Find it on YouTube and your normal podcast platforms.
Cool.
But yeah, later this year, I'll be launching my actual community, like a digital community, which will involve group calls, weekly chats, mentorship, BTS footage, podcasts before they come out, extra Q&As, so a load of great stuff. That's kind of in the pipeline at the moment, probably Q3 this year, later on this year. So I'd love people to kind of follow me on the socials and hopefully watch out for that launch.
And that's the best place to watch for that launch is on your social medias.
Yeah, I'd say Instagram's kind of my main thing. I mean, a lot of it's podcast driven, but I still post my photos ideally once a week on there, and then
Yeah.
a lot of podcast clips and kind of a little bit of BTS and just my thoughts on there. But Instagram's my main place, and obviously my website and YouTube for the podcast. So all the usual platforms, I guess, that most of us photographers are loath
Perfect.
to spend time on.
And for the record, let us know what your website is.
Yeah, that's just mattjacobphotography.com. So, mattjacobphotography, all one word.com.
Awesome
Cool.
sauce. I'm a
Well,
website guy. And so we'll
yeah.
make sure to link everything below as well so people
Yep.
can find you because we definitely believe in community and hope that all our listeners go and check you out. And dude, seriously, been a pleasure.
Thanks so
Yep.
much,
Yeah.
guys.
Yep. Thank you so
Thanks,
much
Matt.
for
All right.
being on
Cheers.
the pod.
Cool. I'll
See you
catch you
later.
later.